All right, imagine for a second that your mind is this massive high-tech control room. You're sitting right there at the main console, making dozens of absolutely critical decisions every single day. But what if you're only actually seeing half the screens? What if the dials you think you're adjusting are literally disconnected from the machinery?
It's a pretty chilling thought, right? And honestly, in our 3 decades working side by side as behavioral psychology and leadership experts, we've seen this exact scenario play out thousands of times. So welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're inviting you into an intimate, totally unfiltered conversation about the hidden architecture of the human mind. We're going to expose those invisible blind spots holding you back and give you the real-world tools to take back control.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We've all been in this exact scenario. Picture this. You're in a crowded, stuffy meeting room. A huge project deadline is looming, and tension is just incredibly high. Someone makes a suggestion, and instantly, there's a heavy sigh, an eye roll, a highly defensive remark. There is that one difficult coworker, and everybody in the room knows exactly who it is. The air just gets sucked right out of the room.
Exactly. You can practically feel the collective blood pressure spike. But here is the truly uncomfortable question that we really need to start with today. What if, in certain rooms, on certain days, that difficult coworker is actually you? Is it possible that you are living your life on mental autopilot, reacting to stress and triggering everyone around you without even realizing the wake you're leaving behind?
Now, if your immediate gut reaction is no way, absolutely not, I am highly self-aware, well, prepare to be a little surprised. Extensive psychological studies reveal this shocking reality. There is literally less than a 30% correlation between how competent we believe we are and how competent we actually are. Just think about the gravity of that for a second. Over 70% of our own self-assessment is fundamentally flawed. It's this massive, glaring mismatch between perception and reality. We see this all the time in our practice. You get a manager who genuinely believes they're this deeply empathetic, open-minded listener. But in reality, they constantly interrupt their team and shut down every new idea. They aren't malicious, they just have a massive, gaping blind spot.
We actually refer to this phenomenon as the self-awareness illusion. Because let's be honest, society has basically sold us a myth. We're told we're naturally self-aware creatures, and that if you just sit alone in a quiet room, journal for a few hours, and think really, really hard about your feelings, you'll suddenly reach this perfect state of total enlightenment.
But organizational psychologist Dr. Tasha Eureka's research busts that myth completely wide open. It turns out that unstructured introspection, what we often just call navel-gazing, can actually lower your job satisfaction and your overall well-being. We see folks all the time who journal endlessly trying to find themselves, and they honestly just end up more depressed. Instead of giving you clarity, endless internal rumination just cranks up your anxiety. It creates this closed loop that traps you inside your own head.
To make sense of this, Dr. Urich breaks it down into a fascinating dual construct theory. True self-awareness isn't just one big monolithic thing. It's actually split into 2 entirely different pillars, internal and external awareness. Internal is all about knowing your own core values, your passions, your distinct triggers, and your emotional baselines.
Right, but external self-awareness? That's an entirely different beast. That is understanding exactly how other people perceive you in real time. And the absolute crucial catch here is that having one does not guarantee the other. You can know your own core values perfectly, like you might literally have them written on a sticky note on your bathroom mirror, but still be completely oblivious to the fact that your team finds your tone of voice deeply intimidating when you're stressed.
And this distinction isn't just academic theory. It has very hard, measurable consequences out in the real world. Research by Korn Ferry analyzed thousands of professionals across hundreds of major companies. They discovered that employees working in poorly performing firms actually have 20% more blind spots than those in top-tier organizations. And to put that into perspective, those same individuals were 79% more likely to lack self-awareness altogether. That 20% isn't just some sterile statistic. It translates into destroyed team morale, massive employee turnover, and highly toxic environments. This illusion literally hinders your personal career growth, wrecks your relationships, and negatively impacts the bottom line of basically everything you touch.
Bill George, the highly respected former CEO of Medtronic, hit the nail on the head. He said, "Self-awareness is the starting point of leadership. Through self-awareness, we can lead ourselves with authenticity and integrity."
Absolutely. Let that thought truly breathe for a moment. And we want to emphasize something incredibly strongly here. This isn't exclusively for corporate CEOs or executives sitting in glass boardrooms. Self-awareness is the ultimate psychological equalizer. It doesn't matter if you manage a Fortune 500 company, if you're a mid-level manager, or if you're just trying to keep a chaotic household from falling apart. The foundation is exactly the same. You simply cannot lead your own life with integrity if you don't actually know who is sitting in the driver's seat.
And this brilliantly illustrates how we actually fix that. To map out this incredibly personal journey, psychologists rely on a classic, powerful framework called the Johari window. It was created way back in 1955 by psychologists Joseph Luft and Harry Ingham, and let me tell you, it has stood the test of time for a very good reason.
Oh, for sure. We use this constantly in our clinical practice. Think of it as a psychological blueprint. It's designed to help you map out your hidden gems, those unknown strengths you haven't even tapped into yet, as well as the hidden weaknesses that are quietly sabotaging your efforts behind the scenes. It takes the invisible, messy workings of your mind and puts them onto a clean grid that you can actually work with.
Let's really break down these 4 quadrants, because this is where the magic happens. First, you have the open area. This is what you know about yourself and what others clearly know about you. It's your public baseline. Then there's the hidden area. The things you know internally but actively choose to conceal. Think of your deep-seated imposter syndrome or that lingering fear of failure you never ever talk about. Then there's the unknown, which is latent to everyone, untapped potential that just hasn't been tested yet. And finally, the danger zone, the blind spot. These are the things everyone else clearly sees about you, but you don't. It's the defensive tone you take when questioned, or the way you physically cross your arms and close off your body language. The entire goal of this framework is to expand your open area. And you do this through a bilateral process, strategic self-disclosure to shrink the hidden area, and actively soliciting tough, honest feedback to shrink your blind spot. A brilliant, and honestly pretty funny way to think about the blind spot is what the Migro platform calls the cream cheese effect. Imagine you are walking around all day with a huge, embarrassing smear of cream cheese right on your cheek. You feel perfectly fine, you're smiling, you think you look absolutely great, but literally everyone around you sees it clear as day. I can't even tell you how many times I've sat across from an executive who metaphorically had cream cheese all over their face. They are completely oblivious to how abrasive they're being. And that is exactly what a behavioral blind spot feels like from the inside. It feels like absolutely nothing. This is exactly why we desperately need a trusted inner circle. We need people who feel safe enough to lean in across the table and say, hey, you've got a little something right there. But how do we actually handle it when someone points out the cream cheese, when we realize we've messed up? Most people immediately ask, why? Why am I so defensive? Why did I bomb that presentation? Dr. Urich's clinical findings showed that asking why just triggers unhelpful rumination. Your brain will literally invent a plausible but often entirely incorrect narrative to explain your failure, and you just end up feeling worse.
Let's look at the contrast here, because it's a real game changer. If you ask why you failed, you label yourself a failure. Instead, you need to ask what. What can I do differently next time? What specific steps can I take to prep better? If you just had a terrible argument with your spouse, don't ask, why am I so terrible at communicating? Ask, what can I say right now to de-escalate this? Simply changing that internal question from why to what transforms you from a passive victim into an active problem solver.
Taking that problem-solving mindset, let's explore how this builds into real-world application. Awareness isn't just some mystical, unattainable state of mind. It is a highly measurable, trainable skill. And cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, provides some of the absolute best mental high-performance tools on the planet to build this muscle. I actually like to think of these not as clinical therapy, but as psychological biohacking. These tools teach you how to physically step out of your mental autopilot. They allow you to observe your own racing thoughts and bodily sensations objectively without beating yourself up. It creates this critical gap of cognitive space. And that's exactly the space you need to stop unhelpful, destructive behaviors dead in their tracks before they even happen. So, the crucial point is, you do not need a weekly therapy session to start using these today. These are highly practical, everyday self-monitoring tools. First, the automatic thought log. This is simply writing down a panicked thought like, I'm going to get fired, so you can actually look at it on paper and realize, hey, it's just a thought, not a fact. Second is the mood thermometer, where you simply rate your stress on a scale of 1 to 10 before walking into a high-stakes meeting. Third is the body signal scan. This is paying attention to your physical cues, noticing that your jaw is clenching or your chest is getting tight right before you snap at a colleague. Trust me, your body always knows you're stressed way before your brain does. And finally, the mindful minute, taking just 60 seconds of focused breathing to hit the reset button on your nervous system.
Ordinary folks can use these exact tools to catch an automatic reaction before it ruins a day or, worse, a relationship.
Let's map this out step by step using a super powerful exercise called timeline mapping. Imagine a talented professional, let's just call her Sarah. It's 9 p.m. on a Thursday, and she gets a highly vague email from her boss that just says, "We need to talk tomorrow." That email is the trigger.
Right, and immediately Sarah's automatic thought kicks in with this catastrophic narrative. I messed up the client project. I'm definitely getting fired. The emotion that follows is intense, suffocating anxiety. Her heart races, her shoulders tense up. That's the body signal. And the behavior? Driven by sheer panic, she fires off a highly defensive, passive-aggressive reply at 9:15 p.m. But by mapping out this chain reaction, Sarah can isolate that automatic thought in the future, challenge her own narrative, and stop the reactive behavior before ever hitting send.
Doing this level of internal work, mapping your timelines, facing your blind spots, acknowledging those triggers is deeply, deeply uncomfortable. But it is literally the only path to profound authenticity. When you finally understand your triggers and you actively manage the dark corners of your Johari window, you become incredibly consistent. And consistency is everything. That consistency is what builds immense, unshakable trust with the people around you. Because trust isn't just handed out, it's earned through emotional predictability. Trust is the ultimate bedrock of emotional intelligence. As the saying goes, the better your self-awareness, the truer you can be. Truer to your team, truer to your family, and ultimately, truer to yourself.
So how do you actually start shrinking those blind spots the minute this explainer ends? Well, here's your practical action plan drawn right from our decades in the field. First, seek highly specific, regular feedback. Never just ask, "Hey, how am I doing?" That's way too broad. Ask, "What is one specific thing I do that gets in my own way?" Second, practice intentional self-disclosure. You don't have to overshare your deepest childhood traumas, but simply admitting to your team, "Hey guys, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by this deadline," builds massive psychological safety. Third, reflect on your behavior without judgment. Be an objective observer of your mind, using those what questions we talked about. And finally, embrace true vulnerability. Allow a trusted friend to hold a mirror up to you, even when you know you probably aren't going to like the reflection. The true, authentic version of yourself is just waiting to be engaged. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer today. But before you go, we want to leave you with the ultimate awareness challenge. This week, we are daring you to take definitive action. Will you ask a trusted friend or colleague for absolutely brutal, honest feedback to shrink your blind spot? Or will you sit down and write a regret letter to finally forgive your past self, letting go of the internal rumination that has been holding you back all this time? The choice is entirely yours. Stop living your life on mental autopilot. Pick just one of these challenges and start the work today.